We all have this picture in our minds of Canada, right? A place known for being welcoming, its diverse culture, and a generally high quality of life. It's a powerful image. But when we look beyond that, what's really driving the Canadian economy and where is it headed?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to unpack today.
Precisely. We're doing a deep dive into the factors that are going to shape Canada's economic future. We've looked at some really insightful material to understand the country's fundamental strengths,
Right.
the challenges it faces, and the potential pathways forward.
Okay.
Our goal here in this deep dive is really to give you a clear understanding of how Canada can best use its advantages and, tackle its weaknesses to thrive in what's a rapidly changing world.
So getting you up to speed quickly.
Exactly. Getting you well informed on the critical elements fast.
Okay, let's get into it then. When we talk about Canada, one of the first things, obviously, is the sheer abundance of natural resources. That's got to be a major plus.
Absolutely. I mean, historically, our natural resources, you're talking oil, gas, minerals, forestry, agriculture, they've been central to the Canadian economy.
Generating export revenues.
Consistently. Generating significant export revenues. They form a really solid foundation.
And it's not just what's under the ground, is it? Canada also has this reputation for a highly educated population, strong focus on research.
That's a huge asset. The high levels of post-secondary education across the country, coupled with the robust research happening in our universities and institutions, that really fuels innovation and supports a growing, knowledge-based economy.
Then there's Canada's approach to immigration. It seems like the system is, designed to adapt to the country's economic needs.
Well, what's fascinating here is how programs like Express Entry are specifically structured. They attract skilled workers based on clearly identified economic demands.
So it's strategic.
Very strategic. This isn't just about bumping up the population numbers. It's a response to demographic shifts like the aging population, lower birth rate.
Right.
And immigrants play this crucial role in keeping the labor force strong.
And the multicultural aspect of Canada. I mean, it feels like that has real economic benefits beyond just, sounding good on paper.
Exactly. A multicultural and diverse society brings such a wide range of perspectives. It strengthens our connections to the global economy, and it fosters both innovation and entrepreneurship. There are studies showing that companies with more diverse leadership teams, they tend to outperform the less diverse ones.
Interesting. So a direct link there.
Suggests a direct link, between diverse perspectives and finding innovative solutions.
We also often hear about Canada having stable institutions, a really reliable financial sector. That must count for a lot.
Oh, it provides a critical bedrock of stability. Strong governance, a clear rule of law, a well-regarded banking system.
Yeah.
It all contributes to a secure and predictable economic environment. And that's essential for attracting investment and supporting sustained growth.
Okay, here's something surprising I found. Canada is the only G7 nation with free trade agreements with all the other G7 countries.
That's right.
That seems like a uniquely strong position in global commerce.
It is indeed. That extensive network of trade agreements offers, considerable advantages in accessing key global markets and just making international trade smoother.
Okay, so we've looked at some pretty significant strengths there, but to get the full picture, we need to talk about the challenges.
Right.
What are some of the critical weaknesses holding Canada back? The one that keeps popping up is lagging productivity.
That's a really important pressure point. Canada's output per hour worked. It significantly trails the United States and other OECD countries.
The OECD being?
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, basically a group of leading developed economies.
Gotcha.
And this lag in productivity, it's contributed to a stagnation in our GDP per capita growth. That's a real concern for long-term prosperity.
And why is that? Is it just one thing?
Well, it's complex. But some research suggests the types of investments Canadian businesses are making might be part of it. Maybe skewed towards less productivity-boosting areas compared to our peers.
Right.
Like maybe a higher proportion going into, say, real estate rather than cutting-edge machinery or technology.
And it sounds like businesses here aren't investing enough in the very things that could boost that productivity, like the new tech and equipment you mentioned.
Exactly. The level of business investment in machinery, equipment, technology, and crucially R&D, research and development, is just lower in Canada compared to many international competitors.
And that holds back innovation.
Directly impedes innovation and adopting more efficient ways of doing things. Yes.
I also keep hearing about the red tape challenges, navigating regulations, how difficult it can be to get projects off the ground, especially big ones.
Yeah, this issue of regulatory complexity and even barriers to trade within Canada itself, it's a significant drag on competitiveness.
Internal barriers between provinces.
Exactly. Cumbersome approval processes, particularly for major projects. Plus those internal trade barriers. They create inefficiencies, make it more difficult, more expensive to do business. And Canada's ranking for ease of doing business has actually slipped because of it.
Not good. And despite having all those trade deals you mentioned earlier, we still seem to rely very, very heavily on just one trading partner, the U.S.
That's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, the close proximity, strong economic ties with the U.S., they're definitely beneficial in many ways.
Sure.
But the fact that over 75% of our goods exports go south, it makes our economy quite vulnerable.
Vulnerable
to any shifts in U.S. policy, like protectionism, trade disputes.
Like we've seen before.
Right. Or even just an economic slowdown in the U.S. It hits us hard.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, with all those other agreements, why haven't we seen more diversification already? Are there specific barriers stopping that?
That's a great question, something to dig into. And then there's the issue that hits so many Canadians directly in the pocketbook, the housing affordability crisis.
Oh, absolutely, especially in major urban centers.
Yeah.
The soaring costs of housing, they're having a significant impact on living standards for many Canadians. It affects their ability to move for work, so labor mobility.
Right.
And it could potentially even affect social cohesion in our cities. It creates real pressure.
And it's not just housing, is it? It feels like there are gaps in infrastructure more broadly. Transportation networks, even getting reliable high-speed internet everywhere.
You're right. There are identified needs there. Transportation infrastructure, digital connectivity, which is crucial now, and even energy infrastructure. These need addressing to really support future growth and efficiency across the country.
We also talked about immigration as a strength, but it seems like we're not always doing the best job using the skills people bring with them.
This is that ongoing challenge of skills underutilization. Despite the high levels of education many immigrants have, there are persistent issues with recognizing foreign credentials, getting them smoothly integrated into the Canadian labor market. And unfortunately, that leads to many being underemployed. Wasted potential, really.
Frustrating for them and bad for the economy.
Exactly.
Finally, there's this suggestion, maybe a cultural thing, a tendency towards being a bit too comfortable, maybe less inclined to take risks compared to some other places.
Some analysis does suggest that, yeah, a potential cultural tendency towards maybe lower risk-taking here compared to more innovation-driven economies like the U.S.
And that could slow things down.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It could slow down the adoption of new technologies and innovative business models if there's a reluctance to embrace change or uncertainty.
Okay, so we've got a clearer picture now. Strengths, weaknesses. Now let's look forward. Where are the key opportunities for Canada to really grow? Technology and innovation seem like a huge one.
Absolutely huge. Accelerating the adoption and development of tech, like AI, automation, clean technologies, digitalization, across all sorts of sectors. That holds immense potential for boosting that lagging productivity we talked about.
So how do we do that?
Well, supporting innovation hubs, providing robust R&D funding, things like the SR&ED tax credits.
SR&ED being?
The Scientific Research and Experimental Development Tax Incentive Program. Big one. And the Strategic Innovation Fund. Those kinds of programs are crucial.
Okay. And it really sounds like diversifying our trade, getting away from that heavy U.S. reliance is a massive opportunity too.
Trade diversification is absolutely key. We need to be actively leveraging the existing agreements we have, like CPTPP.
The Trans-Pacific Partnership one.
That's the one. Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. And CETA, the agreement with Europe.
Right.
And aggressively pursuing new partnerships elsewhere. That's how we reduce the U.S. dependence and open up new avenues for growth.
The whole global economy is shifting towards cleaner energy. Could Canada really carve out a leadership role there?
There's a significant opportunity, yes, for Canada to position itself as a leader in the clean energy transition. We have the potential to develop, deploy, and export clean energy tech.
Like what specifically?
Hydro, obviously, but also wind, solar, nuclear, hydrogen, carbon capture. Across the board, really, this could become a major driver of economic growth down the road.
And we need to keep attracting talented people through immigration, right? But maybe focus more on making sure their skills actually get used.
Precisely. Continuing to attract global talent is vital, but we must significantly improve those integration pathways, streamline credential recognition, really harness the skills and expertise newcomers bring.
It feels like Canada's historically leaned so heavily on just digging stuff up, raw materials.
Yeah.
Is there a real chance to move towards more value-added stuff?
Moving towards a value-added economy is crucial for long-term prosperity. Absolutely.
So not just shipping logs, but making furniture.
Kind of, yeah. Expanding beyond just extracting raw resources to more processing, advanced manufacturing, knowledge-based industries. Even in agriculture, huge potential there for tech and value-added processing, not just growing crops.
We touched on infrastructure gaps earlier, so investing strategically there could unlock growth.
Definitely. Strategic investments in modernizing infrastructure, that means trade corridors, digital networks, green infrastructure, and crucially, increasing housing supply are all essential to support long-term growth and just make everything run more efficiently.
And finally, on the regulatory side, can we just make it easier to do business here? Cut some of that red tape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Undertaking meaningful regulatory reform, streamlining processes, harmonizing standards between provinces like building codes, for instance, and reducing those internal trade barriers. That could unlock significant economic growth, potentially without needing massive new capital investment, just making things work better.
Okay. Now, alongside these opportunities, there are also some pretty significant threats Canada needs to watch out for, right? That U.S. market reliance still feels like the elephant in the room.
It remains the most immediate and significant threat. The potential for renewed U.S. protectionism, trade disputes, it could severely impact Canadian exports, hike up costs for our businesses, damage economic confidence, and even raise the risk of an economic downturn, a constant vulnerability.
And we're also operating in a global economic landscape that feels, well, pretty volatile these days.
Indeed. Global economic volatility, slowdowns in other major economies like China or Europe, geopolitical instability, supply chain disruption.
We've seen plenty of those.
Exactly. They can all negatively impact demand for Canadian exports and potentially deter investment. We're not isolated.
The impact of climate change also can't be ignored, obviously.
No. Climate change presents both immediate and long-term threats. You've got the physical impacts, more frequent, intense wildfires, floods.
We're seeing that already.
We are. And then there are the significant economic costs tied to the necessary transition to a low-carbon economy. It's a massive undertaking.
And if we don't get a handle on that lagging productivity, it sounds like that just keeps dragging us down.
That's correct. If we fail to address the root causes of our weak productivity, it will just continue to erode Canada's competitiveness and negatively impact living standards over time. It compounds.
Interestingly, you mentioned immigration as a strength, but sudden shifts, there could also be a risk.
Well, yes. While adjusting immigration targets to manage pressures on housing and services is something governments consider,
Understandably.
a rapid, poorly managed slowdown in immigration could actually create significant labor shortages in key sectors that have come to rely on that influx of newcomers. It's a balancing act.
And unfortunately, some of the social challenges we've touched on, like cost of living, could become bigger threats, too.
Yeah, rising inequality, persistent social pressures, high housing costs, access to health care, wages not keeping up with inflation. These can strain social cohesion. And ultimately, that can undermine long-term economic stability, too. They're linked.
Finally, technology. Huge opportunity, you said, but also disruptive.
That's the dual nature of it, isn't it? Technological disruption offers tremendous potential for growth and efficiency, yes. But it also poses a threat to existing job categories. It requires proactive, ongoing efforts in workforce retraining and adaptation. People need support through that change.
Okay, so we've looked at all these different pieces: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. What are the key strategic directions Canada needs to take? How do we build resilience and foster growth? It sounds like tackling productivity and innovation has to be priority number one.
Absolutely. Urgently addressing that productivity and innovation deficit is paramount. It requires a really concerted effort.
Like what?
Like incentivizing business investment through targeted tax policies, providing greater regulatory certainty so businesses feel confident investing, strategically deploying programs like that Strategic Innovation Fund to encourage spending on R&D and adopting new tech. We also need to foster a stronger culture of innovation, encouraging risk-taking, supporting research commercialization, improving access to venture capital for growing firms.
And skills.
And skills, definitely. Investing in boosting skills through lifelong learning, making sure our education system is aligned with future labor market needs, especially digital and green skills. It's essential.
And it seems like we can't just sit back on trade either. We need to be actively out there building new relationships beyond the U.S.
Enhance competitiveness. Expand trade, yes. Aggressively diversify. Focus on expanding our presence in key markets, Europe, Asia Pacific, provide more support for our small and medium-sized businesses to help them go international.
And break down those internal barriers, too.
Simultaneously, yes. Prioritize breaking down barriers within Canada. Foster greater federal-provincial collaboration to get rid of those interprovincial trade hurdles. Streamline regulations to improve the ease of doing business. Speed up project approvals, while of course maintaining necessary safety and environmental standards.
Investing strategically in people and infrastructure. That feels critical too.
Yes. Strategically investing in both. That means optimizing our immigration system and integration, improving credential recognition, better settlement supports for newcomers, while also sustainably managing temporary resident flows.
And basic needs.
Addressing foundational needs, like increasing affordable housing supply, shoring up the healthcare system, critical, and looking ahead, investing in future-proofing infrastructure, modern trade corridors, robust digital networks, clean energy grids, efficient public transit.
And it really feels like Canada has this genuine shot at being a leader in the green economy, doesn't it?
Leading in the green transition, yes. Positioning in Canada not just as a responsible resource supplier, but as a global leader in clean tech development and export.
How do we push that?
Using policies like carbon pricing, maybe with border adjustments so our industries aren't disadvantaged, alongside targeted incentives. That can really drive decarbonization across the economy and create significant new green jobs.
Ultimately, though, it sounds like none of this happens in silos. It needs a collaborative effort, right, from everyone.
Fostering national unity around shared economic goals is absolutely crucial. You can't tackle these complex issues without a collaborative Team Canada approach.
Meaning governments, business?
Federal, provincial governments, businesses, labor groups, Indigenous partners, civil society.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be involved. And as you sort of hinted at earlier, working to bridge political divides, finding common ground on core economic and social goals. That's essential for making tough choices and implementing effective long-term strategies.
Using that diversity as a strength.
Leveraging Canada's diversity effectively means ensuring inclusivity, creating shared opportunities for all Canadians.
Okay, so to try and bring it all together, Canada has these significant underlying strengths, but we're facing some really critical challenges. It seems the key priorities are to aggressively boost productivity and innovation, actively diversify trade, make those strategic investments in people and infrastructure, while also really seizing the opportunities in the green economy shift.
That's a very insightful summary.
Yeah.
Canada's future economic prosperity really hinges on proactively addressing those vulnerabilities and effectively capitalizing on the opportunities. And those external threats, particularly around trade, they definitely add a sense of urgency.
Okay, so here's a final thought then for you listening. Canada often defines itself by its unity within diversity. Given all the global complexities we've discussed and the significant actions needed to secure our national prosperity, how can each of us as individual Canadians contribute to building the consensus and fostering the collaboration that's clearly needed? It really highlights just how interconnected all of this really is, doesn't it?